And if you're thinking about it of AI layered with your own IP and expertise, you're able to actually not be stuck in this commoditized component. Because the reality of how I'm seeing the world is that if everyone is utilizing the same LLM, the same base data set, then there actually is no differentiation in it, right? Because we're all using the exact same thing. So it actually creates for greater commoditization. And so we need to be able to create for greater, deeper insights and become more indispensable utilizing the data synthesis tool that AI is. Hey, so we are all standing at the edge of the AI frontier. And let's be real, every agency owner knows that it's here. Some are worried that it might replace them. Some are experimenting with tools, but most aren't implementing AI in any meaningful or strategic way. And it's not because they don't care, it's because the noise is incredibly loud. The learning curve feels very steep, and no one wants to waste time chasing just another trend. But here's the real truth. AI isn't just a passing wave. It's reshaping how value is created and delivered. And if we shift our focus from tools to how to use them, it becomes a true massive opportunity. So today I want to break down what is hype and what's real, and what actually matters for agencies that want to stay relevant, profitable, and differentiated. And so it's not about replacing your team or doing more with less. It's about delivering better work, about creating greater client impact, and making your agency's intellectual property more valuable than it ever has been before. The first piece that I want to talk about is the overwhelm from that daily wave of kind of AI tools. And I've had my own evolution of this for the past year or so. And the reality is that there's so many tools that are coming out every single day. And there's this kind of FOMO driven adoption that rarely just leads to a lasting advancement. And so this idea of what is the best tool is ultimately the wrong question to be asking. It's actually chasing novelty over impact. And the real leverage isn't in the tools. It's about how it is that we go about applying them truly strategically. So the reality is, and so here's my own evolution, and hopefully this resonates with you, is that to begin with, my first approach was this. So what exactly is the best tool for me to be using? And so I would learn a new tool, and then I would end up discovering, after having just learned how to use this tool, that there was another tool. And my frustration in that moment was, well, I just spent weeks learning this tool, and now I've got to learn another one. And so I realized in that moment, in having then found tools like Replit, that I was able to then create in about a 72-hour period of time, I was able to create a working prototype of my own piece of software. And so I realized in that moment that the idea of chasing a new tool and actually just looking at these new tools, and mind you, tools eventually will become more easily adoptable and adaptable and implementable. And I'm not saying that there is not utility to tools, but the idea of chasing these tools, this tool race, is hype, and it's problematic because the barrier of entry to creating a tool now is so low that there's going to be so many of them that are going to be created rapidly. And I'm speaking as a person that was able to create a prototype of a new software, and I'm not a coder at all. I even then went into trying to learn Python and starting to code, and that went far too techie nerdy even for me. And the reality is that if you're in a place where you're trying to figure out what is the best tool to be using right now, you're thinking about it the wrong way. And again, as I'm major asterisks, that as time progresses, some of these tools will become really useful, but right now they're still in such an evolutionary period of time that trying to chase them is incredibly difficult. So the first piece that I want to talk about is in actually implementing is I want us to talk about how to build things down into that smallest valuable unit in your own IP. So the reality is that AI isn't going to do thinking. And frankly, the idea that you're going to have AI do thinking for you is another fool's errand and actually just quite problematic. There's initial studies being done that people's cognitive ability is reducing when they're trying to use AI to do the thinking for them. What it really is a data synthesis tool, and thinking about it more that way. And if you've played with it, quite a lot, you will see that there is quite a lot of hallucination. It will be overly positive in what it is that it's providing to you and your ideas. It'll answer things. You can lead it to answering the question in the way that you want it to, versus it actually being critical. And so it's how you actually put the thought into it. So you cannot remove the thinking yourself. You have to still do the thinking, but you can have it do the data processing, the data synthesis. And so the analogy I like to use is like, I want you to think about an AI tool or process that is 1,000-story tall Jenga tower. And there's two components to it. There's the AI component, and then there's the human component. There's the thinking, there's the logic, there's the expertise, there's the know-how, there's the IP, and then there's the data synthesis. And so one question, one small piece of this 1,000-story tall Jenga tower, you have 4 blocks that make up each floor. And so some of those blocks are going to be individual small little components of the question, and then some of it is going to be your logic, this kind of if-then criteria that you're thinking about. So I want you to be starting to think about, how do you take your existing unique process framework point of view and break it down into the smallest digestible unit. And so I want you to start to look at, and how can we start to create? I want you to think of your own expertise, your own IP in the kind of mindset of it being its own LLM. And I'm not saying that you need to go build your own LLM and actually download and install it on your own server and create that. But AI enhances your agency when it's able to leverage your institutional knowledge. And so if you were to take your IP plus AI and be able to utilize it to synthesize the data and allow for your designers to have the information at their fingertips when they need it, the data synthesis, you have strategists that are able to do more desktop research and gather more insights into what it is that they're doing to then actually apply the logic to having information being able to be collected. So this kind of AI automation, data aggregation, insight component of it becomes really useful. But when you layer that underneath your own logic, your own thinking, is when it becomes really powerful. So I want you to start to think about, how do you embed your agency with a layer of AI, not replacing things with AI, but a layer of AI that has the layer that sits on top of it being your own playbook, your own workflow, will actually create for a really meaningful implementation of this. And so AI really just isn't about doing things faster. It's about being able to do things better. Because the reality is, and at least in my personal experience and viewpoint, is that there's only so much data input that a human can process in a given moment. And so it's what information should be serviced at this exact moment for this specific thing that I'm doing right now. What information do I need to be leveraging? Whether it's client goals, opportunities that they've brought up, challenges that they're experiencing, research that we've already done, data insights that we already have, competitor research that we currently have, validating things against persona ICP profiles, that AI can enable you to cut that desktop research time significantly, freeing up more space for strategy. It can help you create the concept that you have, that first version, that prototype, low fidelity creative, and actually test creative ideas faster so that you have a greater output, and allow for you to be able to gain deeper insights from the brand storytelling component of things as well. So like you can start to test things, create user persona profiles of different bots and things like that are related to one specific ICP, and then have it like test against it what things work well, what things aren't, why would this resonate, why would it not, and actually allow for that data synthesis component of things to be able to highlight what is working, what isn't, risk profiles, that sort of thing, that becomes really useful in how you're going about it. And so I want you to start to think about the distinction between that short-term efficiency gain versus long-term differentiation. So here's how I see the world. And on this season, you've heard me talk with several M&A advisors, PE people that are investing into agencies, and we've talked about this concept. And so here's how I see things on a timeline, if you will, is that you have the short-term timeline where you have an opportunity as an agency to be able to do things faster, theoretically, right? Because you have less time in data synthesis, less time in desktop research. And so that creates greater capacity that you can resell that time, make greater profitability, have less hours involved. And so with that, you have a window of time, 3 to 5 years, that you're able to really truly capitalize on that before the market starts to recognize that things are being done a whole lot faster, before people that are not in your field, that don't have your expertise, are not going to know that that's the case. But eventually the market's going to catch up with that concept. And so in that timeline, at the end of that timeline, you're going to have greater price sensitivity, and it's going to continue to increase over that timeline. It's not just going to be snap one day and then everybody realizes. So it's going to continue to increase over time. And so I think that there's an opportunity. And so the way that I'm looking at it is that, so let's say that a project is going to take 100 hours, just for easy number's sake. It's going to take 100 hours and you're able to reduce that time in half. And so it's now only taking 50 hours of time for you to do that same deliverable the same way that you were before. And so now you've saved 50 hours. And so that 50 hours, you can either pad profitability, you can reduce price point, or you can reinvest that additional time, a portion of it or all of it, into your existing scope of work and produce a higher value output, greater fidelity work, greater insights for the client, thus creating greater impact. And so the result of that is a couple of things. One, it allows for you to be able to create for greater reputation, greater notoriety. And so when that evolution ultimately happens, where you have that price sensitivity, you have greater notoriety, greater reputation in your agency. So that higher price point value, it actually creates for meaningful differentiation. And if you're thinking about it of AI layered with your own IP and expertise, you're able to actually not be stuck in this commoditized component. Because the reality of how I'm seeing the world is that if everyone is utilizing the same LLM, the same base data set, then there actually is no differentiation in it, right? Because we're all using the exact same thing. So it actually creates for greater commoditization. And so we need to be able to create for greater, deeper insights and become more indispensable utilizing the data synthesis tool that AI is. And so how this actually matters and how it is that, and I don't have a direct solution of how you're going to go about it because there's so many different ways of going about it, but I want you to think about AI more this way. And that's the purpose of this episode, is I want you to start to build a lean AI stack that actually complements your workflow. So how do we think about, how do I leverage what AI tool, and it could be just as simple as a custom GPT or an OpenAI agent. It could be just a bot that you're utilizing with Claude that has all the client data insights that you're able to leverage to ask questions of. It could be, a clay table that you're doing desktop research with. And so there's loads of different ways that you can go about implementing things with AI. But I want you to start to train your team to not think with AI, but how to use it and leverage it to do the administrative component of their job so that they are doing the most high value, impactful work, but then also layering in and actually creating for a meaningful data set. So, and mind you, I know that the vast majority of you listening are not the Excel data spreadsheet nerd people, but I want you to then start to take that exact same analogy where I was talking about that 1,000-story tall Jenga tower, and then lay that Jenga tower flat, right? You're going to take it from it being vertical to being horizontal, and then start to take each one of those little blocks and actually break it down into each different data point. And if you actually create a meaningful data set with past clients, current proposals, past calls, those sorts of things that allow for you to be able to leverage that information in a meaningful way, it creates for you moving away from chasing tools to actually creating for greater insights, creating greater differentiation for yourself and your agency. Because the reality is that no other person is going to have that same data set. Sure, they may have their own data set, but you're sitting on a treasure trove of information, whether it's in your Google Drive, whether it's in your SharePoint files, whether it's in your email, whether it's in your Zoom recordings or what have you. You have an incredible amount of data that you are not leveraging in a meaningful way. And because AI is an incredibly powerful data synthesis tool, you're able to move from being in a place where you're able to create for things just being faster, but actually creating for it to be more impactful. So my viewpoint is that the AI frontier isn't about chasing tools. It's about refining the way that you go about delivering value and the way that you're already bringing it and amplifying it in ways that just weren't possible before. And being able to take some of the time savings that you have, reinvesting it into the project that you currently are working on, and create a truly competitive edge that won't come from, the latest plugin or the latest tool, and actually embedding it into your unique perspective, process, workflow, and expertise that AI is leveraging. And it makes you irreplaceable in that moment. And it creates work that clients can't get anywhere else. It creates for insights that clients can't get anywhere else. And so if you're focusing there, you'll be far ahead of the hype and being able to actually move into this new era that we find ourselves. Hey everyone, thank you so much for listening in today. With all of the shifts in the industry, it is easy to feel overwhelmed or unsure of your next move. So I'm not here to try to sell you anything. I just want to give back and guide you through the uncertainty. Whether you're navigating new trends or just need some clarity, we're here to listen and offer advice. Head to creativeagencysuccess.com/chat to book a free 15-minute chat with an agency mentor who can provide you with a fresh perspective. Let's figure out the best steps for your agency's growth together.